Greetings, English 102 students. You have made it to week 8, the final week in the course, and you should be very, very proud of yourselves. If you have completed everything but the DB2 assignment and the research essay, then you're right on schedule. If you have completed everything, including one or more of those 2 items, then you are way ahead of schedule, and I'm impressed. So good for you if that's the case. So for this final video clip, since I used week 7 to discuss the DB2 assignment, I will use this final video clip to discuss the common major errors made on the research essay and the course evaluation survey, and then say a little farewell to each of you. So let's begin with the research essay, Common Major Errors. I'll just mention this in passing because hopefully you've been listening to my other videos and you know by now not to make this mistake, but just in case, please make sure you are choosing from the 4 prompts as far as what to write your paper on. Hopefully you are way past this point now as far as choosing a topic, and you've submitted a thesis and outline page, and you are past this point. But if you're not, and you're just not choosing your topic, make sure you choose from the 4 prompts on the research essay instructions document. Moving on, using good sources. This is one of the major common errors on the research essay, and I mentioned about this a little bit in the week 6 video, but I'm going to reiterate. Make sure your sources are of a good quality. So make sure they're written by literary critics about the play that you are writing about. So don't get sources on psychology and psychological behavior. Don't get sources on death in general. Pick sources about Othello, about Oedipus Rex, about Everyman, or whatever play that you've picked. Make sure, of course, that they're scholarly. I've been reiterating that for the past 3 weeks. Make sure that they are not website sources, not study guide sources. Make sure that they're quality, because the whole point of using sources is to build up your own credibility, because you're just a student. You're not an expert in this field. So you use quotes from experts in the field to support and back up your own opinions. So that's kind of how research works. So that's the idea of using good sources. Make sure that you know that your textbook doesn't count unless you are quoting from the textbook editors. So the play itself doesn't count as one of the 5 required sources. You can count one source from your textbook editors or from somebody else from the textbook, but make sure that you get the other 4 sources outside of your textbook, that not all your sources are coming just from your textbook, because I will notice that and you will lose significant points. So again, the point is to take you outside of the course books and move you into the realm of research amongst literary critics. Also, make sure that you use your sources wisely. Now, this is sort of the second major common error that students make, but it's related to using good sources in the sense that once you've got those good sources, make sure that you're using them effectively. So that has to do with the things that you choose to cite from your sources. So number 1, don't just throw in quotes from sources just because you're required to use them. So you shouldn't be going along and then in the middle of the paper just throw in some random quote from a source about the play that doesn't clearly connect to the point that you're currently making, and it doesn't clearly connect to your thesis statement in any way. So avoid doing that. Make sure that you introduce the quote, and then once you've quoted it, that you follow up the quote with an explanation, interpretation of what the quote is actually saying, because a lot of times literary critics like to speak in or write in language that is a little bit harder to understand. So make it clear to me that you understand what your source is saying and how it ties into the point that you're currently making. Okay, so don't do what's plunking, which is just basically plunking a quote down in the middle of your paper just to do so. Okay, because that doesn't flow with the continuity of your paper. It doesn't make any sense. And so it's not really going to count as you using a source if you do that. Also, make sure that you are using sources not for plot summary. Okay, so make sure that what you're citing actually goes towards supporting you in your analysis. So don't, use a source quote to say that every man all every man's friends abandoned him. Okay, that is a simple plot point that you could have just said yourself without citing anybody. That doesn't need a source quote to be cited, and therefore if you use a source quote for that purpose, it's not going to count toward you citing from your scholarly sources. So use your source quotes to make sure to use them to support your points of analysis. Don't use them to summarize plot points or make obvious observations about the plot. Another point, make sure that you put your exact words from sources in quotation marks and show where the source material begins and ends. So especially if you're paraphrasing, if you're putting a source's ideas into your own words, first of all, make sure they're completely in your own words. And then secondly, make sure that you show where that source's material starts, not just at the end. So I shouldn't see a whole bunch of text going down the paper and then all of a sudden source name in parentheses. Because I'm going to go back and read back up the page and go, well, where did that source material begin? So you've got to use some sort of according to phrase or something like that to signal, okay, here's where my ideas stop and here's where the source's ideas start. And then follow that up with a citation, that paraphrase with a citation. And then also make sure that you attribute any idea or words, okay, from a source to the author right there in the text, and that's known as in-text citation. So right there in parentheses at the end of a quotation or at the end of a paraphrase, that you put, you give credit to the source in parentheses. Especially put in quotes any exact wording from a source, because that means that if you don't put it in quotation marks, but it's exact wording from a source, it's kind of like you're saying, well, these are the source's ideas, but it's my own words, which is not true. So be very, very careful about that. You don't take credit for wording, and you don't take credit from ideas that come from another source. So when in doubt, over-document, we call it. And then moving on from using your sources wisely to another common major error that's made specifically by those who choose every man as their topic. Don't preach a sermon. And you kind of heard me say this to you about your fiction essay and your poetry essay. Don't preach a sermon with every man. Your focus needs to remain on the specific question prompt that's talking about how the author perceives death based on the treatment of death in the play. So you can refer to scripture occasionally, but keep the focus on answering that particular prompt, and only use scripture when it's absolutely necessary to make a point. Also, make sure that you don't go off topic if you're doing that particular play, because what some students do is tend to go off topic about whether the idea of work salvation and earning your way to heaven by doing good deeds, if that's accurate or if that's biblical or if that's Christian. remember, your whole point is to say what the author states, but not to analyze whether or not it's the correct interpretation. You can mention that if you want a little bit at the end, but there's no need to get into this big overextended comparison between Catholicism and Christianity or anything like that. Keep the focus up just simply on responding to the prompt and don't go off topic. So that's for Everyman. Now back to just if you're writing on any of the plays. And I mentioned these next few things in week 6, but they bear repeating here just to make sure you're not doing it. Don't organize the paper like plot summary. So just another reminder, make sure that every paragraph in your paper, the first sentence of it should be some sort of argument or statement that you're making in support of your main point. Okay, it should not be a statement about every man going somewhere or every man doing something. It should not be a statement about what happened to Oedipus. Okay, it shouldn't be a statement about what Othello did next or what Iago said. Okay, those are all plot points. So the very first sentence of every paragraph, I should be able to just go through and read every first sentence and sort of see a layout of all the arguments that you're on your outline, that each of the points that you're arguing that support your response to the assignment prompt. So, if you're writing on Oedipus or Othello, making good tragic heroes or bad tragic heroes according to Aristotle's criteria, each point in the outline should be one of Aristotle's criteria and how Othello or Oedipus fits or does not fit that criteria. And then you can use plot points and quotes from the play to support those assertions, and please do use quotes from the play, and of course quotes from sources to support that. But again, no plot summary. So I shouldn't be reading plot points as the first sentence in each paragraph. And each paragraph should be unified and should support whatever the first sentence says that it's about. So hopefully that makes sense. For the next common major error, make sure that you are actually making a point, and that point is the answer to the assignment prompt. The research question that's sort of implied in the assignment prompt is what you'll want to answer in regards to both your thesis statement and the point that you're making in the paper. So make sure that you answer what I've referred to in all my videos as the so what question. Okay, so I shouldn't get to the end of your paper and go, okay, you've mentioned all of these criteria about a tragic hero, you've talked about Othello, but so what? Okay, so your point should sum up, yes, Othello meets most of the criteria, but he's lacking in this one and this one, so therefore, overall, he cannot be said to be a tragic hero according to Aristotle. Or the reverse of that, if you think he meets all the criteria, then without a doubt, Othello, meets Aristotle's criteria for a tragic hero. So make a definitive statement that addresses that. And make sure that you do mention that it has to be according to Aristotle if you choose one of those topics. One of the issues that students who choose those topics, I find them running into, is that they quote other sources' definitions of tragedy or definitions of a tragic hero. And they decide if they meet those criteria, and they have nothing to do with Aristotle's definitions or criteria for a tragic hero. So make sure that you are examining, as the prompt says, according to Aristotle's criteria specifically. So that's the point of those assignment prompts, is to really make sure that you're really acquainted with those different criteria. And Aristotle talks about tragic hero being of noble stature. He talks about a tragic hero having falling from high estate to low estate. He talks about the tragic hero being the cause of his own downfall through something that's called a tragic flaw or hamartia. And then he talks about the tragic hero experiencing a reversal, and the tragic hero experiencing recognition of having done wrong. And then he talks about catharsis, which is the audience experiencing some sort of purging of their emotions and some sort of relief from stress because of that. And so all of those criteria you need to think about when you're doing those particular when you're doing those particular topics, if you will. And then last but not least, make sure that you actually do quote from the plays themselves to support your point. I shouldn't get through your whole paper and not see a single play quote. If I do, number one, I'm going to know that you probably didn't read the play, and number two, you're going to be missing out a significant number of points from your content area of your rubric score, and especially if you're doing Othello, I'm going to suspect that you probably didn't read the play if you don't quote from Othello, because students who do Othello have a tendency not to quote from Othello because they can't really understand the words of Othello and Shakespeare's thoughts. So make sure that you do understand, if you choose Othello, that you need to quote from the play, and you need to understand the quotes and interpret them and show how they connect to the point that you're making. When you quote from the play, please remember that no matter what format style you're choosing, and I hope that you use MLA format for this particular paper. I'm not going to make you, but I highly recommend that you choose MLA because it is the only one that has a format for quoting plays and for citing literary works. But even if you don't choose MLA, and if you're using APA or Turabian, you still need to cite a play, the play itself, in MLA format. So go by what your textbook says as far as how to cite lines of a play. I've given you the textbook pages for that in the emailed and posted announcement, so make sure you look at that and make sure you note how to cite a play. Basically, you use a slash between where a line begins and ends if you're quoting multiple lines of text, and you in parentheses you put the act number, the scene number, and the line number. If you're doing Oedipus or a Shakespeare play, if you're doing Everyman, then you do line numbers in parentheses. So make sure that you're doing that accurately and efficiently, and use your textbook as that sort of reference. Speaking of formatting styles, do make sure that your list of sources meticulously follows whatever format style you're choosing, that your page numbering and your running heads or your headers and all of that stuff, your in-text citations, or if you use footnotes for Turabian, that you have accurately followed your selected formatting style for all of those things. Look up sample papers in your selected formatting style. The Online Writing Center has some. Purdue OWL has APA and MLA sample research papers that you can look at, and I know our Online Writing Center has sample Turabian research paper that you can look at. But please make sure that you're formatting everything about your paper except the cover page according to your selected style, but use the cover page for our course instead of whatever your format style is. Also, make sure you include your thesis and your outline page following your cover page. Even if you already submitted it and got feedback, it still goes in this paper between the cover page and your opening page of text. And then your references page, as I said, should list all of your sources, should also include the play itself as a citation on your references page or your works cited page, and make sure that all of that is accurate and correct. Also, another resource for you to use would be your past essays that I've already commented on. Make sure that you're going back and reviewing those comments and editing and revising your work for grammar and for punctuation and spelling and all of those good things to make sure that this paper is the best that you can get it. And then make sure that you review the research essay rubric. And I know I always say that in all of these videos, but this rubric is a little bit different from the other ones because it includes a new section, a different section on formatting, and also the point division is a lot different because this paper is worth a lot more points because it's a research paper. So make sure that you're looking at all the different columns and all the different things that you might be losing points for if you're not careful, and reviewing that will help you do as well as you can on that. And then don't forget about the extra credit opportunity. and I've written to you about this a couple times. If you submit your paper by Friday of this week, Friday midnight Eastern time, you will get 20 extra points added on to your paper score. So that's like an entire pre-test worth of points that you could get if you submit it Friday by midnight. If you submit it Saturday by midnight Eastern time, then you will get 12 extra credit points added onto your paper. And then, of course, you must submit your paper absolutely by Sunday midnight Eastern time. And then, of course, there's no points for submitting it on Sunday. So if you choose to submit your paper early, please, please do so only after you have reviewed it and made sure you've looked at all the checklists and you've checked it over and everything. Because if you just do, you know, an okay job or even a poor job on your paper, then the extra credit points are not really going to be extra credit points. They're just going to go to sort of help you catch up to where you should be, instead of actually helping make up for previous maybe test scores or paper scores. So in order for it to count as true extra credit, you want to do your absolute best on the paper, and I hope that for you anyway. And as far as your outlines and or drafts that you've submitted, the ones that I have not responded to yet, I will make sure to respond to no later than Tuesday midnight, but I will try to make sure that I do so sooner if possible. And let me know if you haven't heard back from me at that point. Now let me say a word about the course evaluation survey. Course evaluation survey is where you get a chance to give your feedback about me as your teacher and your feedback about the course specifically. Now remember, I mentioned at the beginning of the course that I am not the course designer or creator. I did not write the tests. I did not design the curriculum or pick the stories or anything like that. So if you have issues about that, put that in the course evaluation survey, and those comments and ratings about the course itself and the design, the test questions, all of that go to the course designers. They will get those comments, and hopefully they'll consider them and take into account what you've said. But then the ones that you comment on about me, you know, whether or not I've communicated well, whether or not I've been available for you, and you know, whether or not I've integrated a biblical worldview into the course, and all of those different things, those kind of comments and ratings come to me. And I take these very seriously. They also go to my chair and my immediate supervisor, see those comments as well. So please do be honest, and please do pay attention to the course rate or the ratings for the survey. So if you rate something a 1, that's really, really low or really, really bad. That's negative. If you rate something a 5, which is the highest number, that's the best number that you give it, and that's a very, very positive. So you know, make sure that you're thinking of that properly and not thinking, oh, number one means the best, you know, and so that's what I'm going to rate this teacher, when that actually means that's the worst. So keep that in mind as you do your ratings, and be honest with your feedback and your comments. I always look forward to reading both your constructive criticism and your praise and comments that really are a blessing to me as well. As far as saying farewell to you, I just want to reiterate one more time, I hope the course has allowed you to gain or regain an appreciation for all the various types of literature that show us human nature, both the good and the bad of human nature. And, you know, I hope that you have been given glimpses into the beauty and just, you know, that the soul soothing appreciation, hopefully, that I pray that you've had, that you might have experienced at reading this type of literature. Maybe you've had your eyes opened about some things regarding human nature and some of the stranger things that we've read, but I hope especially the poetry has meant a lot to you, and that you've had your eyes open and your soul enlightened and your heart blessed in a way that the Lord might use, not just, for witnessing to those around you, but also in your own personal devotional time and scripture reading, that you might remember all of these techniques that you've learned and apply it to scripture, and maybe pull more out of scripture than you have before. That's my prayer for you. I hope that you can walk away from this course having grown in your critical thinking skills and in just the way that you apply insights that you can gain from just everything around you, because God is at the core of all that we do, or should be at the core of all that we say and do, all that we observe, and we should be able to find Him even in this fallen world. And I think that's what literature shows us. I have enjoyed having each and every one of you in class, and thank you to those of you who put forth your best effort, or the effort that you had to give considering what was going on all around you and in your lives and your responsibilities. I will be praying for you the rest of this week as you complete these final tasks while balancing all those other responsibilities. I wish you the best as you complete this course and as you complete your degree, and wow, what a wonderful day that will be.